part two of Anna's childhood development as remembered by my mother. Phobias. I first became aware of phobias when Anna was at primary school, although it is only recently that her phobias have become so many and extreme. She would take any warning completely literally. Her brain did not seem able to process information normally. I remember a fire drill shortly after Anna started school, and how the next day she screamed and did not want to go to school, despite having had no fears about school before then. And it was because she thought the school was going to burn down, and it was really difficult to convince her it wasn't. Likewise, she was told fireworks were dangerous, and so she would not go anywhere near a firework display. She was warned about germs, and she started avoiding anyone with the slightest cold or cough. She was told to wash her hands, and she started doing this obsessively. Secondary school. Anna got into Bishop Laffer School, one of the 5 special places they offer each year to children in need of support. We took this to appeal, and she got in, presumably on the strength of the reports from Jessie Younghusband's school, where she was statemented for special needs in her final year. She did not seem nervous of starting Bishop Laffer, and she seemed to settle all right with special needs support. Year 9 was very difficult, however, with teachers expressing concern about her behaviour and the fact she did not join in, and she was given a book that had to be signed at each lesson. She seemed to come through this, however, and the last years at the school were better, with her getting good GCSEs and A-levels. Anna discovered that if she learnt things off by heart, she could do well in exams, and this gave her an incentive. She still could not handle mathematics, however. She was about the worst in her year and ended up with a G grade at GCSE, despite a lot of help. She still has little grasp of numbers. She can learn things off by heart like tables, which helped get her the G, but she cannot apply the information, and I'm constantly taken aback by her inability to do the most basic calculations. As a teenager, Anna continued to have toddler-like tantrums and screaming fits. She took little real interest in other people apart from Kate Winslet. She had noticeable difficulty with eye contact, and her eyes sometimes seemed very impenetrable. Little things seemed to sometimes have an importance to her, out of proportion, for example, what we were having to eat. It was becoming obvious that she could not bear the smallest changes to routine. She would, for example, go to bed at exactly the same time, and get up at the same time. It helped her do well at exams, as she would revise for set times. I was amazed at her discipline. She had difficulty following plots of films and books. She preferred non-fiction. When we watched films on TV, Anna kept saying, "I do not understand." She could not understand someone was lying, even if this was clearly flagged up, and she could not understand facial expressions. Obsessions. At primary school, Anna seemed obsessed with food. She would talk non-stop about food and what people had to eat. She also became obsessed with babies. Later, she saw the film Titanic. I cannot remember how old she was. I do, I was 11 years old. And she became absolutely obsessed with the actress Kate Winslet. She collected every magazine article she could find and spent hours on the internet researching Kate Winslet. She was constantly telling us detailed lists of information about Kate Winslet, her family, everything that was eaten at her wedding, her school results, every TV programme and film she was ever in, etc., etc. She would sit at the computer writing down all the information. If I threw away any scrap of paper relating to Kate Winslet, Anna had screaming fits. She was inconsolable. Anna would talk non-stop about Kate Winslet in a very fast, monotonous voice. I was then being tested to make sure I'd listened. Questions like, when was the date of birth of Kate Winslet's brother? Suffice to say, my whole family became Kate Winslet experts. They know everything. They still do, I think. The Kate Winslet obsession lasted many years, and Anna still has huge piles of articles and notes relating to her. Yes, indeed, I do. And I'll be doing a series on my interests, just about my interests, the next time, because I've been unearthing loads and loads of my prior notes, and the forensic detail I went into was quite amazing, really. So that was the list of notes that I found just recently that I thought made very interesting reading, that my mum wrote about my development, because my parents, particularly my mum, who was more clued up about these things, but she suspected I was autistic from when I was about the end of my primary school years, and she sometimes used the word and said, "You're behaving in an autistic way," and I just found that really, really annoying. And then later on during my teenage years, my dad would joke about it because he was a teacher and he'd had teacher training, and he'd kind of put two and two together and started to realise that a lot of my traits probably were autistic. But my parents were actually quite worried about what a label would do, because they didn't know whether it would affect my life chances and stuff, which is a bit silly when you think about it, because obviously not having a label obviously means you have less life chances, and if you do have a diagnosis. So obviously my dad now realises, he recognises, you know, and my mum did, you know, she did recognise that as well. So yeah, it took me a lot longer because I was in denial. I'm going to do a whole video series, I think, at some point, just about diagnosis and why I was in denial, and why, you know, I just didn't want to accept I needed any help and everything. And I was, you know, there's nothing wrong with me. Obviously, I don't like, I'm using the word wrong in inverted commas because that's what I thought at the time. You know, I'm completely normal. You know, everyone's against me. You know, that's what I genuinely felt, and I really did feel my parents were having an unnecessary go at me, and, you know, just get lost. But yeah. Anyhow, so I hope you enjoyed me reading that out to you. Obviously, those were just my mother's recollections of my development, and it's just interesting, I think, to get it from an outside person as well. But I'll also be doing a video, obviously, talking about my own experiences and what I went through, because this is, you know, this is just what my mum wrote about from the outside, looking in, as it were. So, I hope you enjoyed listening to this video. Thank you.